For those who are joining us today, there's really no agenda. I think the goal was really like Vignesh and I often sort of get together every once in a while to talk a little bit more about like how we're viewing like AI coding. Eric had given us access to the like Cursor 2.0 for a little bit, trying some stuff out. We were exploring things like agent views and the code review tools. And then last week, Cursor released everything. And so Vignesh and I were gonna have this call just like by ourselves to talk a little bit more about it. And then I realized, you know what, maybe we should invite Eric, maybe get some feedback, also answer some questions, and then it turns out maybe we should just bring some folks together and have a conversation there. Eric, do you want to introduce yourself first, and then we can also introduce ourselves afterwards?
Yes, awesome. I love this idea, by the way. Thank you for doing this. So I'm Eric. I've been at Cursor for a year now. I mostly work with product and developer experience and interfacing with a lot of our users and making sure like we build the best product that exists out there. And a lot of that is like bridging the gap between what the model capabilities are today and what users expect and developers expect and how it can fit into their workflows. So that means, yeah, talking to a lot of users, building some features, shipping them sometimes, doing some marketing, education, all these kind of stuff. Yeah, great to be here.
Vignesh, do you want to go as well?
Sure. So I'm Vignesh for people that don't know me here. I'm also an applied AI consultant like Jason. I've been working with companies for about 3 years. I've been doing this for 5 years, but specific on applied AI for the last 3 years. I'm pretty heavy fanboy of Cursor. If I'm being honest, I would say my business is 10%, no, maybe 50% attributable to AI coding, and I've been using Cursor since 2023. So yeah.
And yeah, I'm Jason. I've been doing a lot of like independent research for the past like 2, 3 years. My background is mostly in machine learning, and I don't know if most people know the story, but basically, in like 2021, I had RSI and I couldn't code for like 2 years. And so I was like, you know what? Like my tech career is over. I'm gonna go like do pottery and like go swimming. And then when ChatGPT came out, I was like, okay, maybe I can code again. It's not really there. And now like the only button I press on my computer is the transcribe button and then the enter button. And yeah, I will say I think for a little bit I was very much into the CLI world because I was like, I don't really need to look at the code. I'm just sort of building these experiments. But I spent $200 in this month on Cursor. I've not upgraded, and then I was like, oh, that's fine, $200 a month, that's okay. And then I realized billing starts November 1st, and so yeah, I think a lot of the changes in Cursor 2.0 have really changed the way that I've been writing software. But that said, I mostly don't see myself as a software engineer. I mostly see myself as a researcher. I think Vignesh has a lot of more thoughts on sort of what does that look like in the actual like implementation and the software development process of yeah. And I know you had some thoughts there. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about that.
You want to talk about me?
Yeah, I think because earlier like you were all in like agent in the side panel,
Yeah.
and now you've become more comfortable with like background agents and asynchronous work, whereas I sort of had to do that because I couldn't type.
It's actually very worth talking about in this audience because Eric, I don't know if you know this. Well, you don't know. We haven't met actually. So the story for me was I was copying and pasting like entire files of code into ChatGPT and being like, give me the whole code. Don't just say like fill it in. Like I was trying to do this for a long time. And I got to a point where I said, I don't care if this takes longer. I'm just gonna figure out how to make this work. Like I got to a point where I was writing 100% of my code doing that. Then I thought to myself, copying and pasting is really annoying. So I found Cursor that way. I said, oh, wouldn't it be nice if it copied and pasted it for me? Was like the starting point. And then the next big like eureka moment was if I see an error in the command line, just hit fix it for me because I was copying and pasting and saying fix it. So what has happened, I could never have imagined from that point going to now where I'm in an agent view where I'm literally not even looking at the code sometimes. Like to get to that point is really fascinating. So what I taught at the course was more focused on like be very thoughtful about every single plan, like be very clear about what you're going to change, like really take time there, look at the code as you're doing it, interrupt the agent if it messes it up. But I think there has been a bit of a shift in how the models are working, how quickly they move. What I taught like doesn't quite work as well
Eric,
now.
this is really funny. So when we were doing our like private training, so we had basically a bunch of different companies come in to like learn how to use AI to code. And I was like, guys, like Cheetah is great. I don't know where this model is coming from, but it's so fast. And Vignesh was like, you know what? Like I'm gonna use Sonnet and Codex. I can see the code coming out. I can read the code, and I know what the AI is going doing. And then when 2.0 comes out, you're just like, yeah, it's the code is coming out so fast. I can't read
I can't
anything.
even read it. I can't read it anymore. And I think that's like, it's actually forced me to spend more time planning. Like I've had to make sure that the plan is way better. And I'll use like more expensive models for the plan now to make sure it's really good. But yeah, I feel like I'm talking a lot. So maybe we can let Eric jump
No,
in.
that's great. Like I was just gonna ask, like, which models do you use? How do you like assemble them
Yeah,
currently?
so I had a tweet the other day, or X post maybe. I think I'm mainly using Sonnet. Sonnet 4.5 is still my main go-to, I would say, just because I trust it a lot. I use it for planning especially. I think it's really good for planning. Then nowadays I'll try to execute like a segment of the plan using Composer 1 just because it's so fast, and if I do a good enough plan, it'll be able to probably finish it. Um, then if I have to debug, I think Codex is still the state of the art for debugging. Like I'm pretty sure if you need to find like one line that's wrong and needs to just fix that one precision line, Codex is really good, but it'll take an hour. Like it'll take so
Yeah.
long. So that's kind of like my go-tos. I don't use anything else.
Kind of the same for me, honestly. Like Codec is really nice for like just finding the gnarliest bugs. You can put it on, you can like go get a coffee or whatever, and then come back
Right,
and it's probably gonna find it.
right,
Um, I think one of the common use cases I'm seeing internally is like, and this has like been my vision for a long time. Like synchronous work should be fast. Like it should be iterative. It should be like smaller prompts, smaller changes. You are in the loop all the time. You know exactly what's going on. And it hasn't really been possible before the fast models were here. Like I see kind of see this as the tab moment for autocomplete, like when we launched and Super Maven as well, like super fast tab. You were like, oh shit, I can just like tab. And it just like gets me, and it like I can move at a very quick speed, but still be in control. I kind of feel like this is the same moment for agents where I can be in the loop, I can prompt the agent to do exactly what I want to do because I know like the direction I want to go in. Whereas like with slower models, I might prompt it to do something, wait 1-2 minutes before it's done, and then I kind of like context switched or I lost interest or like forgot my like train of thought. But now it's like I'm actually like steering the whole like ship here, which is awesome. But at the
right.
same time, background agent, cloud agents, that's where I run a one. That's what I want to run like the slowest models. I don't really care like 5 minutes, 30 minutes, doesn't matter to me. It's async work that I've put on like deferred to the future. And that can resolve whenever. I'm just gonna like go back to it at some point. So that's kind of like how I'm thinking about using different models for different things.
It is
Can
interesting.
I ask a question before you guys keep going?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to get a good workflow going where I drop into an existing repo and I'm still able to build the right context. Do you have any recommendations for uh, building up enough context with engineering files and whatnot that makes that possible? That you
Yeah.
can kind of because I use Sonnet and I get a lot of traction, but I'm just trying to find best practices if you have any.
Yeah. I mean, I just onboarded to a client this week, so maybe I can talk a little bit about that, which is I now just go into a project, I open up Composer, and I just start asking like 1,000 questions. Right? Like, okay, where are these services located? What are the actual response models look like? You know, could you like hypothetically create readmes for every directory? Just sort of give me a map of what the code base looks like. That has been really helpful. And then usually when I'm onboarding these projects that have like really terrible readmes, uh, I might just start making pull requests. I'm like, hey guys, I made 3 pull requests. It's just adding readmes in different parts of these services. Uh, Take a look at the mermaid diagram. Does this all make sense to you guys? And that helps sort of like just be able to contribute while also like joining a new project. Um, Vignesh, I know you have a lot more serious engagements.
This is the course. This is what we're teaching at the course. Not I'm not gonna hard sell the course, but I think for me, I would say that before planning was like much smaller and like exploring and planning. If you think of exploring as finding the right files and context, and then planning as like figuring out how you're gonna approach it. Before it used to be like plan for a little bit, write a lot of code, and then review it at the end. I think now you're gonna like upfront do the planning upfront, like at the beginning before you get into it. But your job is more to do a good job of explaining for if you need to do a good job of explaining what it's supposed to look for. My best way of doing that is to create like a design doc that you're writing. You can use AI to help you write that. Our flow is using Granola or like a meeting transcript bot to talk to it. You get a bunch of notes, create a design doc, and you paste that as context into the chat and say, hey, I'm trying to find the relevant files for this. Make a plan. And then you can review that plan and make sure all the files are in there and adjust as you go. And then the actual code execution, I very much agree with Eric. Like for stuff that I'm okay with it not working out, or like I have high confidence that it'll work out, it's not time sensitive, I'll just throw it to a background agent at that point and just like see what happens, which is not a flow I was doing until the last month or two, if I'm being quite honest. And then if it's something that I want to really be paying attention to as I go step by step, then I'll do it live, like synchronous. But these live code, like these fast models, have really changed it for me. So yeah, that's kind of my answer. Does that answer your question, Justin?
Yeah, that does. Thank you. That's definitely helpful for me because what we end up doing is a lot of incremental work and some bug fixes. And what I've found helps is having the agent generate, like you guys said, a lot of readmes, some architectural diagrams, enough breadcrumbs that I can then ask targeted questions, and it's able to kind of help me out and go that way. But I still do code reviews, so this helps.
The only concern I have with Jason's approach is that I think that's quite reasonable for. I do the same thing when I'm going into it because I'm going to new code bases every month, right? I'm doing implementations. I have to learn it very quickly. So I'll do what Jason's doing and generate readmes, but I'm against committing those because they'll immediately be stale. Like they're gonna code changes very quickly and then they're gonna be wrong and now the agent's doing the wrong thing. So you do need to be mindful of that. Is the only warning I'll say. But
Just
Yeah.
say also like anecdotally from when we hire new engineers at Cursor, the last step they go through is usually like a 48-hour work trial where they come on site, get pitched like 1 to 3 different projects, they get to pick one and they start building this in the product. And this means that they're getting into like a pretty large code base. They've never seen this before, and they're supposed to ship like a feature that could make its way to ish production after 48 hours. And with Cursor, like almost everyone gets up to speed in like 1-2 hours, which is kind of crazy to me. Like I could never thought about like this 2 years ago. Like when I saw Jason first doing his whole like indie consulting things, like that was like before the time we are right now, which is insane. So like, and what I see these people doing is just asking a lot of questions. Like you might have a hunch of what you want to do. So then you just like take that question and ask the model like, you can also like ask like what questions should I ask as a human? And then you start breaking these down and divide and conquer, and you separate the different learnings you need to get in order to like build a fully functional feature. So this can be like, I need to build something that touches authentication and the indexing service and retrieval service. And if you separate those out and then start to like accumulate your context and knowledge about that, you can then start to get a more holistic view of the code base, which helps you to ask even better questions down the line. So I think the takeaway is just like ask more questions. Like if you don't know what to ask the model what to ask. It always works.
it's interesting because a skepticism I get from a lot of engineers is I already know the code base like front to back. Like I don't need agents. I can just probably do it faster. But I would argue that if you know exactly how your code base is structured already, you can just point the agent in the right directions and it's going to do a lot less work to find stuff on your behalf anyways. So I think it works quite well, even if you go to a brand new code base like Eric is talking about, you're on a work trial, or like you're like me and Jason, and you have to build in a new code base for a consultant role. Then yeah, you are going in from zero and you need to use Cursor to help you figure out what to build. But if you already know the code base, then you are just leveraging yourself like crazy when you get into this flow in a good state, which I think the example that I started giving people is that the more you start pushing towards planning things and like delegating these background agents, the more you're essentially a tech lead more than just like a software engineer. So there is like a bit of a shift in the role happening.
Yeah. Eric, let me ask you this. So like I think right now 2.0, I saw a lot of background agent work. and I recently saw the new like code review tool, which has been pretty helpful. It's like I feel like sometimes when I have like Claude review my code, it spits out like a million lines of markdown, but the code review tool has been pretty good. Like, what are some of these like other developmental features that you feel like the people should like know more about or play around with a little bit more?
Great question. There's a bunch of them. I think the highest leverage thing you can do if you're not doing is like check out Bugbot. It's definitely like it's a state of the art like code review agent. And initially, like we have a whole like story and blog post coming out about this, and we're shipping some more improvements to this. But it's one of the places where we've also trained a custom model to do code review for you. And it works by actually like checking out like your changes and your diffs, taking a first pass of them. And once like we identify the bugs, we have a custom false positive model to actually check like, are these real bugs or are they not? And what makes this really good is that we get very few false positives, which I think is one of the largest problems with existing like code review solutions. You get like so many spammy comments saying like, oh, here's a nit, you should check out this might be a bug, etc. But with Bugbot, I found that it's actually like confident bugs. And the whole reason like we created Bugbot was also because we were heavily adopters of agent. We produce a lot of code. We don't have a lot of people at Cursor, so naturally we needed to find a way to like automate our way out of code review. So Bugbot was like the first step to that. And there's like this fun story where someone put up a PR, Bugbot commented in GitHub saying like, oh, you should not merge this. This is gonna like be really bad for Bugbot, or like take down Bugbot. And people are like, oh, whatever. I don't care. I'm gonna have to merge this. 10 minutes later, we get all these enterprise customers calling like, hey, what happened with Bugbot? Turns out like Bugbot found itself when it was supposed to go down. So from then on, we always trust Bugbot.
Is Bugbot the same model that is in the actual IDE for code review, or is it like a different system? Because I know Bugbot for me only gets triggered like in the GitHub action when I leave a comment on GitHub, but I also see under my pull requests panel like code review as a button.
Yeah. So code review is fairly new. It's using a lighter version of Bugbot. So it's a kind of same like paradigm where you have like synchronous review and like async review, where Bugbot and GitHub is really good for async review and like other humans. Whereas like when you're in the IDE, everything should be like fairly snappy. So we did a slight trade-off. I think it's like 80 to 90% as accurate, but 10 times faster in the IDE. So the idea here is that whenever you like produce a change with the agent, you're going to see, you can click review and you're going to see like the changes in the sidebar. And this is like actually also something we're going to have heavily invest in the future, like reordering diffs, what's actually important in code review, etc. But for now, we have this like find bugs button. And this is essentially triggering the in-app Bugbot to like find the different bugs and commenting on them in the editor. So it's slightly faster and tiny bit dumber.
Got it.
Ethan, are you using this? I haven't even tried this yet.
I have some clients that use Bugbot in production, and then I personally use the agent review button.
Yeah, the agent review button. I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah.
So you go into the diff and there's a button called like review.
Yeah. And it's really great because what happens is when the issues come up, you press one button and it basically brings the issues to an agent tab, and then you can just like fix this, enter.
Huh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Let me see if I can pull one up as I ask the next question, which some people had talked about, which is any plans on having debuggers? I think, in the IDE, there's a bunch of really great tools, and I think debuggers are something that like people don't really leverage that much. Right now, if I'm using an AI coding assistant, it'll just add a bunch of print statements, run the code, and then like maybe add some more print statements and run the code. I think some folks has questions about like, what are the wishlist features for Cursor?
Yeah, I think this is very fun. Like, I'm curious, like, to get a feeling in here. How many people use debugger natively in like VS Code or other IDs?
I feel like I'm lying if I say I do it often enough. I feel like I'm lying.
Okay, there's a few. Okay.
I do for web development stuff, I feel like.
Okay, next question. How many people use like console logs to like get runtime context and like whatever? Okay, seems to be a quite. Yes, I think more people use the console logs for sure, because like it's more convenient. You don't have to learn the debugger, etc. So we actually experimented with hooking up the debugger to agent to see like, can you actually operate the debugger and set like the breakpoints and like step through changes, etc. But it wasn't really good. I think we could have made it great if you like put up like great evals and train a model for it specifically, etc. But I think this would also come down to like the better lesson. So what we instead did, we invented this thing that human does too. We created a new mode called debug mode, which essentially instructs the agent to like, hey, add console logs where you think it's important to collect runtime context, but add them with this like specific method. Then instead of like console logging, it like writes them to a specific file. And once the agent has added these like console logs, it's going to ask you as a human to actually like, okay, reproduce the issue. You reproduce the issue, and this is also going to cause all the logs to be collected in a specific file. And then you tell the agent, hey, I reproduced the issue, do your thing. And then the agent is going to look in this file, like it's an actual log file. It's just like, oh, I see the issue now, you know? Like I can see what actually values were produced in runtime. So it's a fairly like trivial implementation, but I think already it's found like 10 memory leaks in the cursor code base. And this is something that we're going to ship in 2.1, probably like in 2 weeks or so. This is not official yet, but you'll see soon.
Let me ask one more question, actually, which is like, I think, you know, with Vignesh and I, a lot of our workflows really is we get on a phone call, we talk about the feature, we talk about the piece of code that we want to write, and then we'll go produce a very large plan. You know, like some of the plans I have are like 600 lines of markdown. And then we kick things off. And then we sort of like, you know, whether it's subagents, whether it's like asynchronous, synchronous, do you feel like there are things that you are sort of like seeing Cursor or the Cursor engineering team is doing that you feel like most people don't really know about, like outside of like have a good agents MD file or you know, organize your code in a way that can be run remotely? I'm curious if there's any like big things there.
Yeah, this is like, it's one of these content pieces we've been wanting to do like forever, like how Cursor use Cursor, because there's a lot of patterns that emerge internally that eventually made its way to the product and like a first class experience. I think one of these things is going to be when you have like a bunch of different plans, or you maybe have a plan, you implement it, you can then go ahead and like reference this in a new plan. It's like, hey, look at this old plan I did over here. This is like a really good plan for the specific change I wanted to do. Take bits and pieces of this for my new plan, and then you eventually start to gather like a collection of plans, product you might call it. And this is like something we're prototyping internally now. How can we make like multi-plan experience a lot better? So that's something I would suggest doing. Another thing is like if you're using Bugbot, setting up like Bugbot rules specifically. We have one for running database migrations, and we have like a quirky setup with our databases, and like to make sure like you index on the right columns and it's not locking anything when you actually run them. So we have like set up some special rules for that, so it catches them. Yeah, what else are we doing? Slack, like Cloud Agent and Slack, it's used heavily internally, and I love it too because it's just like how you interface with a human, right? It's like the same behavior.
Totally makes sense. Recently, Gemini came out with a new structured output mode, and I just basically like, you know, at Cursor, here's the link to the docs. Can you make this supported in like the instructor library? I've not checked the status, but that's
that's awesome.
One question before I like hand it off to Vignesh. Do you guys commit all the plans somewhere, like in the repo? I have a habit of deleting the plan once the feature is done because I don't want to clutter the entire code base with like plan / like feature / like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3.
I delete it too because it always adds it to context in like weird ways I don't want to deal with.
Yeah. Sometimes we do is like, oh, this is like a golden plan. This is awesome. Then we might commit it, but usually not.
Okay.
I leave those in Notion. Then I use an MCP to like get those. So it's a little different for me. I don't like having it in the code base, but interesting.
Yeah, are you guys using linear and like connecting like feature requests from everything to back into Cursor? How has that been working for you guys?
It's been great. So we use linear like quite actively here. And on every linear ticket that's created, we also like kick off a background agent automatically. One thing that I found really useful is, so we're using statsig for featured flags.
Yeah.
And statsig can alert you like, hey, you have this stale flag. It hasn't changed in like 2 weeks and 100% is on it or like 0% is on it. So then we built like this small automation that just inserts the flag as a ticket and just assigns it to the person who created it. It's like, hey, Eric, you have this like deep link thing. If the flag is like on, you got to remove this. And since it's just like inserting this linear and we have like automatic cloud agents, whenever I go into the ticket, I see like, oh, here's the PR. And it's like, oh, it's like perfect. I can just like go ahead and click and merge it. So that's like one of my favorite flows right now. Finding like these small things where cloud agents actually work like end to end.
That's
And I
really
think
good.
there's like a lot more you can do
Move
with
the
this.
flag that way, right? You can also delete the flag after and stuff like that in like an automated way. You don't need it in code base anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the thing. Like it goes into the code base and
It does
actually like
that. Got it.
removes all the traces from the flag.
Nice.
So you like clean it up because yeah, I guess you've all been there. Like you have thousands of
wait
featured
so much
flags and
time.
permutation.
Yeah, I have some
Can be
custom
crazy.
instructions that say like if you call the linear MCP server, just by default tag the coding agents. And so like as I'm working and I notice, oh, like this really should be renamed in a different way, but I don't want to add it to this pull request. Linear makes a ticket, it kicks it off, and then I just merge it and then merge back into mate.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm also want to hear from you guys. Like, what do you think what are like your biggest bottlenecks right now and like points of friction when using coding agents? Like, can be any coding agent really.
For me, it's sub agents, but maybe Vignesh, you can go
It's
first.
sub agents. It's the biggest issue because imagine, think about this workflow, right? Imagine Jason and I get on a call and we say we need to build this feature. There's like 3 phases to it. Some of them can be done in parallel. Some of them are like sequential. And then there's like testing things that we have to do. Right now, like the only ways I can think of, you have a plan, you're on a branch. What is the way to kick off like 3 sub agents from that, right? You would have to commit the plan and then like separate the plan out and say, hey, go, you do this part, you do this part, you do this part. And then now you have 3 separate work trees. Maybe you do that on 3 cloud agents and then you have to merge them back. Maybe you just do it sequentially. Another flow that I've been thinking about doing is just taking that plan and saying, make linear tickets for each one, and then kick off the tasks in linear instead. So that's like my hub for like managing the agents instead. I don't think there's a very clear answer about like how to work with this. I've also like, we have tried doing stacked PRs instead recently as an approach where we just say this is all sequential, go deal with it, and we'll come back later. But yeah, I just gave like 5 different options. I'm not sure which one's gonna win. I don't know if you have a better thought.
Yeah, Jason, curious to hear your perspective. Like,
Yeah.
I know you've been talking about sub agents a lot, but just
Yeah,
curious to hear.
I've literally just been like texting Eric every other week, like, oh, I really wish we had sub agents. So I think in terms of ergonomics, there's 2 things I think
not
codecs
accurate
work
enough.
well. Pardon? Oh, okay. There's 2 sort of ergonomics that I noticed that work really well in the Codex web UI. So not in Codex, the CLI, but Codex, the web UI, and the Cloud Code CLI, which is subagents and subtasks. And so Codex allows you to kick off separate Codex runs in the UI. And so, for example, I can go to Codex and say, find me some like minor nits in my code base, and then create subtasks for each one. And it'll come up with 3 separate tasks. It says, you use a lot of printing and you should be using the logger. Or some of these files are raising HTTP exceptions versus are like custom exceptions. And the third one is there's a bunch of commented out code. And instead of saying fix all of them and then making a PR that's 800 lines, I can press fix prints to log consoles, fix error handling, fix deleted code. And it creates 3 separate PRs that are very small. So that's really helpful because each task should be a small task and they're obviously parallel. The second thing is sub agents, where there was this time I was in Cursor and basically it was my first time writing tests for like React components. And when the tests failed, it would print out, I think, like 60,000 tokens worth of context. So it would run the text, it would get the printout, it'll try to edit the file, and then immediately trigger compaction. And so that loop was really, really slow. So I had to go back to Claude Code and say, okay, make a sub agent that reads the logs and then summarize it for the main agent. So the main agent is still sort of like fixing the issues, but the tests are run somewhere else. Those are the only two things I think would be pretty life-changing. But yeah, I mean, being able to kick off a plan in the background is basically step number one for subtasks.
This makes a lot of sense. Have you tried the plan to background agent yet?
Totally. But sometimes
Nice.
like those plans are like huge features I gotta build. Whereas I think once I've done the features, really is just like, okay, well, I know there's like logging print issues. I know I've deleted code somewhere. I know there's like some dead code somewhere else. Do I have to kick off each task manually, or can I just say like do a health check and like clean things up?
I would rather be able to plan and then come back and be like, I don't feel like it's currently set up to say, let's go kick off like 4 things at once and come back with what, and then we can review it together. It's not really set up like that. It's more like come up with a giant plan. In my head, even if background agents exist, I'm not very convinced that like for a sufficiently complex feature that I could just let it go on for more than like one step at a time. So in some way, I'm basically saying build one feature and then stop is like typically what I'm telling it to do. I'm like finish one phase and then stop, and then I'll look at it in the diff. Even that, like I wish was a flow I could do where it just makes a PR and then I go check it and then let it continue or something. But yeah, I think it would be really interesting to have more of like a sub-agent manager where you come up with a plan. Maybe part of the plan is like nice to haves that are at the end, or like there's this testing feature that we need to build that can be done in parallel with something else. This is all like super advanced stuff, right? Like we're not even like teaching a lot of this in the course. Like the course is more like you're not using agents at all. Like how do you start thinking about planning? Like how do you explore to find the right context? Like even that is like foreign to certain people, which I understand. But once you're in this mode, I think like within 6 months, people are gonna be able to say, okay, I need to start thinking like delegating agents. How do I deal with that? I don't use CLIs much. I think Jason's a much heavier user of the CLIs than me because I like looking at the code all the time. I'm just like I just love looking at it and seeing the file tree and stuff. So that would be my issue. I think some of what Jason's talking about with the Codex UI, like he shows me what he's doing with it. I think it's very powerful. Like what they have done so far compared to the other tools I've tried.
Yeah, the subtext sounds really interesting actually. I gotta play around with that myself a bit more. I spoke to Jai yesterday. He was like building the initial plan mode for Cursor. And in next version, we're actually gonna do subagents for plan mode, which is gonna be nice. So when we launched Best of N with work trees, the data model kind of supports. The data model is actually like subagents, where like one composer, as it was called previously in the code base, can like have children composers or agents. So now we're just going to take the same primitive and apply it to plan mode. So imagine like you prompt agent, you create a plan, and the idea here is that the agent is going to figure out like, okay, which of these like things in the plans are isolated and separate, and how can we like parallelize them and fan them out to separate ones.
Yeah, that's all we need.
So also like to your point, like hopefully people should not have to think about to manage agents and like the fleet of agents and like which agent should do what. It should just be able to like derive this automatically from a plan and the scope of changes. That's the goal.
I think one call out though, it's like I still want to review the code, and
totally.
My biggest pain is like if I let the agent run without doing stacked PRs, I just get like a 7,000 line PR, and I just get super scared.
Yeah.
Whereas like if I use these subtasks, like okay, well I'll have 10 pull requests with 100 lines of code each, and that actually just takes like 9 minutes to review.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of like.
Yeah. Do you think Cursor will like get involved more in the code review process?
Oh, 100%. Like it's one of the main things that we're looking at right now. Like how do you make code review easier for a human to comprehend? And there are things like you can call out in code changes that are more important than others. Like maybe you don't need to see like the import statements at the top, because even though they're at the top of the file, they're probably not the most important and should get most of like your cognitive load. maybe there are like related features in, imagine like a backend and front end repository. If you want to like build a feature that's like end to end, you need to like look at both repositories at the same time. Like, how can you, if you have two PRs and one of each, combine them together into like a unified code review to make sure like data lineage looks okay, everything is like mapped correctly, all these kind of things. So there's just so much to do here, which is very exciting.
Yeah, that sounds like a re-ranker problem of like which parts of the diff are actually the most important to review. Because
Yeah.
yeah, I never have situations where like most of my changes are in a file and then GitHub is like, we've collapsed this diff because it's so big. And then all I get are like the UV log files to review.
Like, thanks.
What about like I'm curious about I guess there's right now there's like three ways you can approach building like plans or like executing plans, right? You can execute them on your local standard branch. You can execute them on like a Git work tree, or you could do them in the cloud. Where do you see what do you in like a year, what do you think most people are going to be using for those? Maybe 2 years.
That's a great question. 2 years is such a long time. It's
Okay,
insane.
let's say a year. Let's say a year.
Let's see, where were we last year? We hadn't shipped agent at the time, a year ago. So in a year, I think we will do a lot more like async in the cloud. I think a lot more is going to be in the cloud because the bottleneck of you, like I would use cloud all the time if I could, but the like, it takes me out of the flow because startup times were too slow. It just like provides a subpar experience compared to local right now. But once it is in the cloud, I think you're not going to notice between like, am I running this on the cloud or local? So I can just shut down my computer. I can pick it up somewhere else. It's going to be like a much more unified experience
Right.
and head off experience. But yeah, no idea, honestly. Like, I think you guys see this like, it's also like, are we talking about P50 or like P99? Like, I'm probably going to talk about P99 because that's what I'm seeing at Cursor. But I guess you guys are seeing a lot more like, what does the real world look like of how people are adopting these tools?
Yeah, I guess it's a loaded question because I'm asking. I didn't even define the population, right? Like, so I don't know. But
Yeah.
I guess like I mean more like average cursor user, like someone that works at a 1,000-person company. Like, what are they going to be doing? I think that I actually think Git work trees are slightly overrated. Like based on like my experience with them, I've tried using them extensively. Um, and I honestly think the vision I have is more like hey, you have this plan. You can come up with like isolated tasks, like what you're talking about. I think that is the right direction. And then you should just be able to throw those to cloud agents and not worry about like work trees and managing that and like all the state associated with it. Um, then I would want to just be on like if I'm live coding, I am going back and forth with an agent writing code in Composer 1, then I would not need work trees. I'm just going to be on a branch and I'm going to be working. So I think like with the work trees approach, people have this vision of like, okay, maybe I can do this thing while I'm doing this other thing and it's running agents. But I'm pretty sure that mind state is better just with the cloud. I'm pretty sure. So
100% agree with you.
interesting. Yeah. Do you feel like people talk about Git work trees too much online or
Yes. I mean, I think it's for us and for me, it's more like a necessity to run best of N rather
Right.
than like I don't want to like, I don't want to juggle like 100 agents doing like parallel thing as like this whole galaxy brain stuff. I just like want to run, okay, I have this change. I want to run like GPT-5, Sonnet, Composer, maybe Codex. And I want to see like, first of all, do they have consensus between the solutions? Um, do they think about like certain things that other didn't? Can I like cherry pick certain pieces? And I think this is going to evolve into at some point taking this like heuristic that I have in my head and first of all like applying that deterministically and then eventually like building a judge on top of like the best of n workflow. So you can spin off a task to 5 agents. You have like a separate agent, just like either merge them or just picks the best solution. But you don't really have to think about this. Like it's just like
interesting?
it's just the council, the agent
Yeah.
council decides of what's the best solution
I'm
is.
like too poor for best event agents, I think. I wish I had unlimited GPUs like all the cursor employees do have like 18 best event agents, but maybe the costs come down enough where it makes sense. But yeah, I'm not doing that yet. I've tried it a little bit, but for me, maybe there's a bit of a difference here. I think there's some people that will only write plans if it's complicated enough, and then otherwise they'll just do like a best event and see what happens and like pick whatever approach is best. My kind of approach right now is more, you could call it extreme, where I'll say if the agent isn't able to build the right thing based on the plan, I will reject it, fix the plan, and then have the agent run again. Instead of saying like anything, that is my approach to making sure the plan is up to date, but that is slightly extreme. And I think that's why I actually don't use the plan mode and cursor right now. I think the plan mode and cursor is more of like a, let's come up with a design doc and then also like come up with tasks associated with it. Whereas I'm more like, I'm going to write a design doc somewhere else. I'm going to come in, make a very detailed plan of exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm going to keep adjusting the plan as I go. So I guess my question is more like, do you see the plan as like a hack for right now because the models just aren't good enough? Or do you think that that is the right approach going forwards, where engineers are going to be writing detailed plans and then letting the agents implement them?
Just like a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Are your plans like moving targets in it? Do they like, are they constrained to a certain kind of feature set, etc.? Or do you always like keep on adding things to them?
I will try to keep it scoped. So, Jason, what's an example of like a thing that we've done recently in that project? I'm just trying to think of a good example.
Yeah, let me look at the code base real quick.
at the
I mean,
code base
one of them
real
was just like implementing data set uploads and making sure that like public data sets are visible by all people and private data sets
Right.
are visited by some people, and it had to like handle the request header, but the request header needs to be transferred from the front end JavaScript to the back end Python. Like that was I think one plan, and I had to add like 2 more things to it because I forgot like toggles on the on like drop down menus and stuff.
I think it's typically scoped to a specific thing that I'm working on. There are cases where I'll build like a multi-step plan that's quite large, but I try not to do anything that's larger than a few days, essentially, because at that point, you don't want like a plan that's like months of work or something. I'm not interested in doing that. Does that answer your question? Or
Yeah, I think so. This is very interesting because I don't think it's not a solved problem yet. And I think the space is still figuring out like what is the best approach to this.
right.
The way I've been using plans, and I see a lot of other people using plans, is just ephemeral, kind of a way to keep the agent trajectory like the way you want it to. So you can essentially like upfront, you spend more time upfront reviewing the trajectory of the agent rather than iterating like every single step. But I think there's like it's kind of this weird middle because you want to keep them around for longer, but you also like want them to be like slightly smaller, perhaps like they're like maybe too verbose. So one thing that we are exploring internally now is also like projects. Like how can you relate multiple different plans together into more of a project, and think of this as like shared context between multiple different agents. So potentially if you create like a plan or two for the first ones, like maybe the third one doesn't need to create a plan because it has the other, it can reference the other plans, and it's like can figure out and extrapolate the changes it needs to do without having a plan. But yeah, this is still very like experimental, and I feel like we still need
very different than this. I think like it's very. I'm way more like, imagine you need to build a feature, but you need to give it to someone that's never seen the code and they're like a brand new grad or an intern, and they need to be able to go implement it. That's the level of specificity they'll have on the plan. And then yeah, I'll adjust the plan as I go, like pretty constantly. Say, hey, this isn't quite right. I'll even sometimes before. So this is a interesting like. Beforehand, I think people would do an architecture review to make sure that the architecture was correct before, like staff engineers would say, this architecture looks correct for this feature. And then you start implementing. And then pretty much until you got to PR review, no one would look at it. But now I've really changed it where I do like maybe architecture review for the design doc, and then I'll come up with a plan and I'll send the plan to Jason. And I'll be like, does the plan look right? And then if he says it looks right, I'll just try the agent to like get it done. But essentially, we're doing a review before the code's done.
Yeah.
I think that's a really powerful thing about getting plans to work properly. Um, but yeah, in terms of like keeping plans small, interestingly, like in that I'm use plans when I'm building like an upfront feature at the very beginning quite a lot. But then let's say as I go, I realize, hey, we're logging too much or we're not logging enough, or I think these pieces of code can be like more separated or like saved into a utils file. I don't write plans for that stuff. I'll just try it with Composer. I'll be like, hey, can you just try moving it? Because the time it takes for me to find out that it didn't work is like seconds, as opposed to like it's not very long, right? So me writing a plan and reviewing it is not even worth it for something like that.
Yeah,
So I have shifted there, if that makes sense.
it makes a lot of sense. I think my idea is that over time you're gonna accumulate a lot of learnings. Like how can we build like flywheels so you don't have to write plans? That's essentially where I'm going. Like
Yeah.
if you have like a plan, there's like the cold start problem, you're kind of solving this with the initial plan. So the next change you want to do, the delta is much lower because there's just so much like intrinsic context from the first plan that should be able to like be inferred. And if we can create like a good experience around this in the product, I think I don't know. Like we're just gonna
Well,
have
it's
to
an
experiment
unsolved
with things.
problem. It is
Yes,
because
exactly.
I think that's all the time because I'll make like a really beautiful plan and I'll like have all this context built up in the chat. And like my theory is like you should never have any people are so scared to switch threads. And what I tell people is like if you don't put all the context that's in the thread into the plan, then like you're messing up. You basically have to be able to switch threads all the time. But you just spent all of this effort to create these contexts to add a plan, and then it's gone. You
Yeah.
delete the plan, now you have to do it over like the next time. But I'm also like skeptical that you can keep plans updated like consistently as code changes and in large code bases with a lot of engineers. So yeah, I think whoever is able to solve this well, I know like I mean, there's lots of companies trying to solve this problem, but I hope you guys figure it out. That'd be good.
Yeah, I have this idea. I want to bounce it with you. And I wanted to research on imagine like you have a large like manual for a new product you buy or like maybe a fridge, you know? It's like hundreds of pages.
Yeah.
And this goes very into detail, but you always start at the index line, like the table of contents. And you find like where do you want to go? And then you find like page 56, you look it up and then you actually start reading this. What if for every plan you create this like index of all the plans that already existed? You have like one small file or one small line that describes the plan in like very high level, and it just links to the real like the full-fledged plan. And for every change you do, you force the agent to like read the index, and it has to decide like should we dynamically read in this plan that we created before, or should we just like create a net new one? Do
Yeah.
you think that would impact your like quality of plans?
I don't think that is the right mindset because for me, the plan is ephemeral, like you said, where even if it's a multi-day plan, I think that very quickly, like in that code base that Jason and I are working on, we've written like I don't know how many commits are we at? Like we're at like 600 commits or something.
Yeah,
Absurd.
I think we've pushed about over 300, 400,000 lines of code. Up and down, not like the code base is not 400,000 lines of code.
So what I'm trying to say is like that's just two people, right? And any plan that I wrote last week is now horribly wrong, like horribly, horribly wrong. So trying to index on that would make it actually worse for the agent in some way, unless it was really good at picking up on
Yeah.
things.
I feel like the tokens are like too cheap. It's like it's all the calories of those tokens are like, it's like all junk food, right? It's like
Yeah.
I think that's what we gotta
Yeah.
think about. It's like the actual code in production, like that's like the good calories. But like I can generate like 10,000 lines of markdown slop. And it's like too
Yeah.
dangerous for the agent to like consume it reliably. Right.
I think the important part to capture is like the user intent because the code is always going to be there. Like you can grab it, search it, whatever. But how do you actually like capture what the user wanted to do and intent and all the corrections that were made like during either planning or iterating with the agent and making use of those for the future. It's kind of like what like memory is supposed to be,
Right.
but more in like a higher abstraction.
I have an idea for you. I think if you're gonna look into this is my free idea. I think you should look into more of like a better Git blame. Like
Mm.
he like here's what lines were committed and be like, why was this added? Like something more on that realm would probably be relevant to me because I'm actually so anti-documentation that we have an agents MD that's like, do not add any lines of comments, no comments allowed. I think testing is the best documentation for agents. I try to get to like 100% coverage at this point, but I have no tools to help me. I could throw like Claude Code or something or Cursor at it and be like, you have Git blame context. Like go look up the PR. And I've tried this a bit, but it hasn't worked very well. That
Mm.
could be an interesting research approach, potentially. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
You
And
might
on top of that, oh yeah, sorry, go ahead, Jason.
I was curious, like, what are your thoughts on like the cognition, like I think they made a code maps or something like that, where like every piece of every function has like rich documentation about it. I'm curious, like, how you guys think about that, because I can imagine I don't even know like how often that's like refreshed, whether it's like up to date. I'm curious if you've seen any of that stuff yet.
add in deep wiki. I think we're interesting.
Yeah, I honestly like don't really know what code maps are. I saw it flow by in my timeline, but I haven't really looked into it. So,
No worries, no worries.
but there's something interesting for sure. And what I still think is most important is like capturing the user intent. Like, how can you incorporate user intent in code review, for example? Because when you end up in code review on GitHub these days, you just see like the diffs, and that's it. Like, is there a way where you can annotate the changes of like, here's why we actually made them? Like, here's the prompt in a different like format and version that like caused this code to like be produced. So yeah, I feel like there's just so much to do.
I have
in all
another
these things.
research
Okay.
concept. I am slightly unconvinced that Git is even the right thing for the agent coding world, where now like Git blame, if you use like a total background agent.
Oh, we tested this, yes.
Yeah, like I'm not sure it's correct. I'm interested if there's a way to be like these lines of code were generated through Vignesh, but using cursor or like something more interesting, whereas Git blame, like it only keeps the primary author. So that can be a little problematic. I would even love a way to be like, these are the prompts that cause this, or like something like that. But that doesn't exist. The only way I could imagine that this would work is you'd have to have some kind of parallel thing that's stored based on the ref log or something, and then you'd have to manage that yourself. Has anyone looked into this? Like, have you seen anything?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of demos internally. So you know when you see like the Git diff of like
Yeah.
blue and red lines in the editor, there was like this button you could click and you could see like green lines for human and blue lines for like agent generated code. That was fairly cool. So you could like still attribute it to an agent and then like who directed the agent to do this. And I think the solution was using Git notes or commit notes. So you just like store the lines of reference to like,
Okay.
which one was agent.
I know that AMP and Codex and Cursor, when they make pull requests, you can link to the threads that generate those requests. But that's kind of like a PR level
Yeah.
dip, where like maybe you just see the 3 cursor threads that caused this.
Yours are just too ephemeral. Like that's kind of the worry with that approach to me.
The commits are really the main thing.
It's just the commits, like the Git blame is the only thing that matters at some point. Like once you're gone, because a year from now there's going to be a bug, and someone's going to like if I had an agent, I would ideally want it to look up. Okay, this is the commit. This was the agent context related to why this change happened. Like I would love for it to know that. But all of this context that exists for the PR is like sort of lost after the fact, unless you summarize it really well into the PR. So that I do worry about. You know, I do really worry about it. And
Yeah, me too.
Better than a human. A human is gone. Like they don't even stay at the company, right? Like the human's not even there in 2 years. So that's like even worse.
Yeah, true.
I know we only have a couple minutes left. I know that I've seen a bunch of talks on Michael talking a little bit more about like the future of coding in general. I'm curious if you like, what are your general thoughts? I think some of the questions were around like, okay, you know, it's really good for technical folks, but you know, like what kind of tools should we expect from Cursor for like the PM or for someone who's like the designer that can now interact with code? Yeah, maybe we can close things off with just like a thoughts on sort of the future of coding from the perspective.
Yeah.
of Cursor.
I think Cursor is primarily built for like professional software engineers, but you can't really stop people from using the product, you know, like, and a lot of non-technical folks find a lot of value in this. all of our designers, they're shipping code to production all the time, even though they like just found out like what an alias is in like a shell environment. And it's good code, like it's great code. We're also running a bunch of workshops for PMs and like other types of work that is not technical. I haven't participated myself, but it's also like inevitable that this is going to happen. Like the models are going to get better. The UI is going to get like we're going to bridge the UI and the product with the model capabilities. That's probably going to be able to make people produce a lot of things without having to know exactly what's going on. Because if we can build a system where we can review the code, we can put like the user in the path of success in a way, with like force them to use plans, force them to use all the best practices that produce great code. You can potentially ship a lot of good things without having to understand what's going on. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm excited though. I think like the built-in web browser is kind of like the first step where you can really like code without having to look at the code. You just open up the browser and it's side chat and it's like you go crazy.
Yeah. Do you have any messages for any companies or folks who have not fully adopted AI coding yet?
All I can say is like from what I've seen and from the people I've talked to, the more you spend, the more you like the ROI is insane. Like the more you spend on these kind of tools early on, the more value you're gonna get for sure. And don't be afraid to like experiment, because this is the future. Like you're gonna get so much value out of this.
Sweet. Vignesh, do you have any last thoughts before we wrap things up? I know we're almost at time.
I'd love, yeah, if I can get any usage of the cursor credits, I could just run best of 18 all the time. I'm happy to do that. Yeah. A bunch of it's a little scary for me because a bunch of engineers from Cursor follow me. So every time I complain about anything, I get like 6 DMs. So
no, keep us sending out feedback. We love that.
Awesome. Eric, this has been a blast. And any other last messages? How can we find you?
Twitter is the main way to reach me. I'm pretty responsive to DMs. So yeah, feel free to send me any feedback, any thoughts, whatever. Happy to jam.
Sweet. Awesome.
Well, thank you guys for having me.
Again. Take care.
See ya.
Super fun.